Welcome to Life Coaching with Laura. I'm Laura Dahne, and as a Christian life coach, I help people in their journey through grief, as well as help them rebuild after loss. My focus is to help people rediscover joy. As a Christian, as a woman, and as a coach, I'm totally inspired by those that are impacting the world for good. Well, my very special guest today is Shanna Alonge. Shanna is a life coach for Christian moms. Shanna, welcome.
Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. I love having conversations with fellow coaches. You know, we speak the same language in so many ways. And clearly, if you're a coach, what it tells me is that you love people and you have learned some skills and some strategies that will help you get along further, right, than where they are right now. So I want you to tell us about yourself. Like, are you married? Do you have children of your own?
So I am married. My name is Shanna Alonge, and I'm a life coach for Christian moms. I've been married for 13 years. I have two children, a 15-year-old and an 11-year-old. So I'm really into the teen years. We have a high schooler, middle schooler, and so that can be and feel really challenging, which is just, it's just something that I just feel so passionate about helping other moms, right? Like going through these same challenges. And so I'm in the thick of it. I'm in the thick of it with my mamas. So.
Well, you know, it's so important too, because when you're in a place you've never been before, it can feel so overwhelming, right?
It can feel overwhelming.
And your role, right, is to help them to know that it may feel overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be overwhelming.
Right. It doesn't have to stay overwhelming. Like we can be in these moments, in these seasons of feeling really overwhelmed, but there's so much possibility. And there's just, sometimes we can just feel backed into a corner, I think a lot of times as moms, and we don't know how to get out, and just having some of the tools. And that's what I teach women, right? Is having these tools that literally create doors and windows that we're able to walk through so that we can keep on moving and we can keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm. What do you think originally gave you the desire to coach moms?
Originally, I started out in the very beginning as a blogger because I wanted to encourage women. I felt like I had been in a place of hopelessness and I had come through it. And I think sometimes when we come through certain challenges, we want to share that with other women because we know how hard it was when we were going through it. And so just helping anyone, lending a hand, putting your arm around another mama that's coming up. And so I originally started with that because motherhood wasn't exactly what I expected it to be. And I kind of wanted to spread that message of it's okay if it's not what you expected it to be. There's still so much hope. You can get better at it. Here's this, this, and this. And so I just really started out encouraging, and I started my journey in that way. And becoming a life coach just really has morphed very naturally into this idea of going from encouraging to teaching to serving to helping. It's just this beautiful process.
I love your transparency in that, you know, we have these visions of what motherhood's going to be. And then, you know, there's the tendency or the temptation to feel guilty if it doesn't seem like yours is matching up with what the storyline is supposed to be. And so a great coach, number one, has to be transparent so others can be transparent. So thank you for being open about that. And, you know, I always believe that you have to go through some stuff and overcome some stuff in order to be able to help somebody. You don't even have to be decades ahead of them. You have to be enough ahead of them that they feel confident that they can get to the other side of that thing, whatever that thing is, right?
Right.
Where you are. So I love that. I love that. So it's a desire to serve.
Yes. Yes.
I love that. What do you see, at least especially today, right? What do you see the top needs of moms are?
It's funny that you mentioned comparison because I think that there's this idea of what a mom should be. And there's this idea of not living up to that expectation. And I see that in every mom that comes to me, whether it's I don't match up with, you know, this mom who's perfect and has the perfect devotional morning routine. Exactly. Right. And perfect is really just this idea of an expectation that you had, and you're not living up to that expectation. So we rewire that with, that's what they come to me with, and we rewire that to, nothing is perfect. First of all, our maker is perfect, and he makes us perfect in him. And so it's just this idea of, we eliminate the word perfect, first of all. So that's huge. And then another one is, a lot of the moms that come to me are really just feel overwhelmed with emotions, and they don't quite understand how to feel their emotions. They want to just push them down. They think emotions are bad. And so yes, we talk a lot about emotions, and talking a lot about how we don't stuff our emotions down. We lean into them. And it's almost like you go through the emotions in order to get to the next, season of your life. But if you don't, you're going to be stuck. And so we all about being stuck and getting unstuck. And those are just the two main things that women come to me. And and it's just a blessing to be able to be, as an emotional mom myself, it's a blessing to be able to help other women who feel emotions and feel like their emotions are stopping them from being the best mom they can be. So that's been the biggest, I would say, struggle that women come to me with, that they're able to kind of have these breakthroughs.
So I love that word rewiring, right? That you help them rewire their thinking, number one. And then you tell me a little bit about the second, like give me a step maybe of how you help a woman get through the feelings. Is there a skill set that you teach her?
I do. So I teach a lot about how we have all these circumstances in our life, and we have these thoughts about our circumstances, and these thoughts really that's what creates all of our feelings.
Yes.
And so
yes.
So it's the rewiring of these thoughts. And right, if we can have a circumstance, we have thoughts about them, and that creates a certain emotion, then replacing those thoughts with something else that will serve your motherhood. And we create those together. That's something that we create. It's unique to each individual mom, because we all have different thoughts about, like, maybe it's a thought about our marriage, or maybe it's a thought about how we are, as a mom, if we're a bad mom or a good mom. And so those produce certain feelings, but changing those thoughts will change our feelings, which, yes, ultimately, I mean, that is either we take action or we don't take action, and we get the results we want or we don't want. And so it's this process of, we have a certain system and process that we go through, and we don't even realize that sometimes it's habitual. And so we get really intentional on what we're thinking, and we get really intentional on changing those thoughts so that we get the results that we want. We get the results of being the mom that we're dreaming of being. And sometimes those dreams are expectations. We didn't even realize that we don't want to be this mom that we thought we wanted to be. But we go through this process and we realize that, okay, wow, I don't even want to be the perfect mom. I don't want to be this perfect mom that does all these different things. And we create, it's in its essence of creating this motherhood, your motherhood, the motherhood you want, the motherhood that works for you. Because there's so much I can say about this, like trying to be somebody that we're not. God created us individually to be a certain mom, to be a certain wife, to be a certain daughter, to be a certain, whatever, label that you have, whatever relationships that you have in your life. And so I just really believe that it's individual. There's not anything perfect. And so that's pretty much the process that we work through.
Well, that's beautiful. It's biblical, right? I mean, our unique experiences, upbringing, faith, all of these things play into the role, that of biblical moms that we want to be. I thought it was interesting that you focused on how for each mom it's individual. And I just wanted to bring the comparison that I think we would both agree as coaches that group coaching is incredible, because you can get a lot of information out that goes across the board for everybody. But what I love about one-on-one coaching is exactly that point, is that helping a woman to work through individual unique circumstances, belief systems, right? You can't do that as effectively, or maybe at all, in a group setting, unless there's a lot of time spent. But that one-on-one helps a person be able to have a safe place, a confidential place, a transparent place where they can talk about their particular unique struggles and have someone in real time, right, with insight and skill set on the outside, helping them to ask the question. One of my favorite questions is that true? Sometimes what we think is the truth is really not true, but nobody
Right.
ever questions us or challenges us on it. And I have found across the board, as I'm sure you have, that when we ask the question to that unique person, right, with that unique situation, is that true? Which is a belief system. I believe we have many false belief systems, but you ask them, is that true? And it's so interesting that by the end of that thought process, they're kind of like, I don't think that is true. Good. That's the work of coaching, right? Is helping
Yes.
people to get unstuck. We're both in agreement with that. And to be individually helped. I really, really appreciate about how you do see moms individually, not as a cookie cutter.
Right. No, absolutely not. I mean, it's funny because the question that you ask, is this true? I ask a very similar question to my moms. I ask them, what do you believe about this? And they tell me the things they believe about it. And then I ask them, what do you want to believe about this? And then it's a completely different answer. And then I ask them, okay, well, how can we get there? Right. And that's when we bring in these different tools of like getting creative on getting them where they want to be. But we just realize that there are all of these lies and there are some of these things that are like wired in. And it's like, oh my goodness, I didn't even realize that what I believe and what I want to believe are two completely different things. Once we realize that, then we can build that bridge and that gap to get to where they actually want to be, right? Like really believing the things that they want to believe. It's just such a beautiful process.
It is. And this is the value again of having someone work with you one-on-one, because here's what happens in friendship typically is our friends either agree with us, right? They usually agree with us. They don't question us. Right. And I remember making a comment to somebody once is that a person could spend a lot of time with me and walk away and say, well, I don't see that she acts like a coach. And my response to that would be, I don't coach without permission. Coaching is very different than friendship. Right? Friendship, there's some hand holding, there's some agreement, there's like, girl, I hear you, and there is a place for girlfriends to challenge and wrestle with each other. But at least the way I experience coaching, I see myself as a coach and as a teacher. What you personified is that a coach asks questions, and what friends do is they give advice.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
It's not to say that you and I don't give skill sets and strategies, but I don't know if I said it right earlier, because sometimes my brain gets a little scrambled, because I'm thinking of so many thoughts. But yeah, our friends won't ask questions. They'll give us their agreement, but they don't say, like, is that true? And what do you want to believe about that? That's the work of a great coach, asking great questions, because then we go, well, I don't know what I really think about that. Oh, okay.
Right.
What would you think?
Right. Exactly. Yes. True. Very true. As far as like just exactly what you said, and I do really believe like anytime I come, when we don't have the same approach with friends, but anytime that I approach my clients, I really have this strong belief that they really do know the answers, right? Like they know what they want. They know the desires of their heart. It's just a matter of asking the questions to pull that out of them. Whereas friends, you're not going to necessarily pull things out of them. You are going to link arms with them and you're going to do things a little differently. And I do agree with that. Yes. Even though support is support, but it's just a different kind of support.
It is different. And you have to be able to navigate both worlds to really understand what that is. Do you still find it a challenge if personal friends want you to coach them?
You know, what's funny is that sometimes my coaching can come out whenever I'm texting friends, more so than when I'm in person with them, because the emotions aren't there, right? It's just like that's eliminated. So it's more of, I do find myself like asking more questions or how do you feel about that? And they're like, I think you're coaching me. Or they'll come to me and they'll, if I'm having a conversation, then they will. I do find that people are naturally attracted to me and naturally want to tell me their story and naturally want to ask me my opinion. And so it is this tricky world of making sure that they don't feel like I am not as intimate, right, as a friendship should be, because as a coach, you're not as intimate, even though you do become I mean, I work with my women for 12 weeks. So by the end of 12 weeks, we're friends.
Yes.
It's just kind of just naturally what happens. And so, but with friendships, it does get a little tricky, right? Like this, so you want to make sure that you're really making sure you have that intimacy with them. And so with coaching, it isn't really the same. So I do find that it is a little tricky there, but as long as I can keep that connection and that intimacy there, that's what really keeps the glue to my friends, from rather me feeling like I'm going to coach them, or when they come to me for coaching, I can kind of move away from that a little bit.
Yeah. I guess it's because we're not used to being in an authoritarian position. And not to say necessarily that coaching is an authoritarian position, but you are assuming yourself as knowledgeable and able to guide and lead. And so we're not used to having that in friendships. And so probably, the two closest girlfriends I've had, one that I've had since we were girls. And then another dear friend of mine who asked me to coach with her, I had to realize that, like, I'm not going to be the friend that right? In this moment, I've got to be your coach, because I know stuff that you're saying, isn't true. You believe it's true, but it's not truth. And so as a coach, I'm going to come in and I'm going to focus in on those areas. I'm not picking on you, right? It's, I'm your girlfriend, but I'm your girlfriend outside of this. I'm your coach inside of this. And so I have found that I can navigate it as long as I give a disclaimer up front. Is that right? Very different as a coach than I am as your buddy.
Right. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. I do. I think the same thing, like with friendships, I am a more, I guess, to say it more on the same level, right? We're talking about things on the same level, and they're not, a lot of times my friends aren't really coming to me and asking a question. They don't really want the answer, I don't think, that maybe a coach would give. Yes. And with my, with moms, so usually if a friend comes to me and is looking for coaching, I will refer them to somebody else who can have that relationship with them. It's the same as your kids, right? They act a different way with their moms, and then you put them with, either their grandparents or for me, my son has a girlfriend, so girlfriend's parents, and there's just a different behavior there. And so it's the same thing. I think it's kind of the same idea. So I usually refer that out, and I usually say, I'm a little bit of a tough love when it comes to coaching. I'm going to give you the things that you're going to need to hear sometimes rather than want to hear. And I think with friendships, there's a lot more grace and compassion, in a way of like, I'm going to tell you some of the things that you want to hear, because I think that's what you need right now. So
such a great point. And also it brings up, for the listener, that there's so many different kinds of coaching, like even as I'm realizing that I was talking about, the role that I would have, it would especially be for inner healing. It's like where you dig down and you really have to look at the why behind the behavior. And, sometimes you have to acknowledge that there's been trauma, and that has to be grieved and worked through. My work these days is primarily with people that are in grief. Something I'm very familiar with, and helping those that are rebuilding a time after loss, whether that's death or, a relationship, a divorce, a loss of a business, loss of a dream. And I find that, again, that's the nuances are going to be a little different. I don't maybe need to take the same role as a coach in somebody who's grieving than if they are, in a place of inner healing, right? So I think that you kind of said that without even realizing you said it, and I appreciated it, because there's so many different types of coaching, right? And so what you focus on is very specific, and I love that. I think that when we're too broad, we can know a little about a lot. I'd rather know a lot about a little, right? And be really good about that.
Yes.
Yeah, it sounds like
I agree.
Yeah, where you're at too. So tell us about one of your, favorite testimonies about one of your clients.
So it's funny. Most of the testimonials I'll get are very similar. It's very much like I started here. I started with a lot of overwhelm, and now I'm able to manage my days better. And most recently, I had a client, Melanie, and it was exactly that. She came to me with feeling like she couldn't manage her days. She couldn't manage some of the day-to-day activities of what she felt motherhood was all about. And so that also looked like she's married. And so with her husband, and just figuring out, a lot of this is relational work. A lot of this is like how to communicate and not only having these thoughts about being upset about your spouse because they are or aren't doing something, but getting to the idea of like, why are you upset about that? And so there's these breakthroughs that happen. So from start to finish, that's what the testimonials look like. It looks like I started here. I felt like there was chaos and overwhelm, and I was stuck, and I just, all I could do was pray. You know, my knees are so raw because I'm just praying. And then by the end, it's like, we have prayed through this process and God has given us answers and action items, and we're able to take action with some of these goals that we want and able to move forward. So that's what most of the testimonials look like, especially the most recent one with Melanie.
Yeah, I'd like to read it.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Melanie says, I knew in my heart I needed Shanna as my coach. Beautiful. These past few months have been a whirlwind of joy and trials, but with Shanna right by my side, I've been able to manage through my struggles. She has taught me how to manage my days, my emotions, and has helped me to stay consistent. Very good. I highly recommend her to any woman that needs some accountability and someone to just listen and put things into perspective. Bravo.
Thank you.
That's great coaching right there. So where do you see your coaching going in the next 5 years?
It's funny that you asked that, because I think in the same way that you asked the first question of where did you start? And I started with blogging. I started with writing. I have this passion of writing and telling stories, but wrapping it around to also be encouraging. And I think if you had asked me then if I would be coaching now, I would have said no. So thinking about where I'm going to be in 5 years, I mean, I would love to just be able to serve as many women as that God brings to me. And I don't know what that looks like. I would love to always one-on-one coach, because like you said, there's just something special about being able to work with somebody one-on-one. I think that there's a lot of groundwork that you can cover that can't be covered with group coaching. But at the same time, who's to say that God is not going to bring an opportunity like that? And I might jump into group coaching, or I might jump into coursework, or there's just so many different avenues as far as business wise goes. But as far as I think I learned a long time ago that when God asks you to do something, it must be done. And that is so scary, because even as I pray for my business now, it's like, okay, and if you took this away from me, I would still be okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have big expectations, but also a very open heart to what God is going to be calling me to do. And so I do have my business goals and what I would like to see, especially with supporting financially my family and serving as many women as I can, but also going, God, I also have a passion to speak. I also have a passion to, write. I mean, I don't know where God is going to call me, but I think that I don't think I know that I always want to make sure that I don't have these horse blinders on. I want to make sure that I'm focused, but I'm also open to whatever he calls me to do. So I think 5 years from now, I just want to make sure that I am doing what he has called me to do. I don't want to be off course.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying, that's when you're trying to say really and what at the same time. Really, what you're saying is that it's good to have vision, just as the Bible says, but to be surrendered to the plans of God. And I would
Amen.
say myself, right? It's good to have a vision, but we want to be continually surrendered to the guidance of the Holy Spirit. So good, thank you. And you know what? You bring up that there's so many ways to connect with people, and they all matter. There's a place for all of them. Group coaching, there's a place for that. One-on-one, there's a place for that. Coursework, there's a place for that. This is how we grow, is in all these individual ways. A part of what women get when they connect with you or connect with any, experienced trained coach is they get your life experience. They get your spiritual understanding of the Bible, accurate Bible understanding, right? And they get the skills that you've worked really hard to get. And I don't think that people really often understand that great coaching isn't just sitting there and giving you advice. It's actually bringing the spiritual, the scientific, which God is, over science, and bringing it all together, and saving somebody maybe years worth of work. Why? Because we've spent, and I'm speaking, you and I as coaches, I'll speak for myself. I've spent decades, studying the Word of God, decades studying, principles, of life. And what happens is that when we're able to be a filter for people, that we can save them 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 12 years to get a better relationship with their children, their husband, themselves, right?
Mhm.
What is that worth? And I know that for me as a lifelong learner, and clearly as a coach for you, it's valuable. That's why we
Mhm.
went and did the work, right? And then made ourselves available, to serve. So having said that, do you personally have a life coach or a mentor?
Absolutely. I was very inspired with my very first life coach I began working with as I morphed from blogging, moving into not really knowing what I wanted to do. I hired my very first life coach, and she was the inspiration for where I'm at today. As with a lot of life coaches, a lot of life coaches start with life coaching. And so I've never stopped having a coach. I think that there's different coaches for different seasons. And like you said before, there's different coaches. There's a coach for everything nowadays. And so whether it's a business coach that I have, or if it's a life coach, I've had an Enneagram coach, I've had different coaches. Currently, I am working with a business coach who also works with mindset, because as we're going through different stages, different things come up and it's not always the same. And I think it can oftentimes be applied to the same areas. It just looks really different. And so we do need different kinds of coaches for different seasons. So I'd like to say I'm always going to have a coach. And if I don't have a coach, then I will have a mentor first, definitely.
And I just want to give a disclaimer for anybody that's listening, is any coach that you have should have great success in that area they're coaching you in. And you should probably take some time to find out if they're going to be a financial coach or a business coach. They need to be able to show you how they are successful, right?
Mhm.
It's kind of like, the old joke is, don't get diet advice from an overweight person. It's like, you really want somebody that, especially that has had some victory. It's having book smarts is important. There's no doubt about it, but life experience and success in something is where I would say that the power and the anointing is. It's like, that's what gives us the courage. I've said for many years that I feel like I am a woman on the other side of a raging river. And I'm thinking about emotions, especially in this area,
Mhm.
the raging river being the emotions. And I'm on the other side of the bank yelling, swim, you won't drown, right? Right. So we have to have those coaches in our lives that have swam,
Mhm.
across. They're on the other side, and they can give us instruction and encouragement that we really won't drown, right?
Right, right.
When we ford that river. And so I love your answer. I personally have coaches. My best friend, May Bagnell, is a life and a career coach. Wow. I mean, she began to coach me a number of years ago and talk about mindset, right? And then my ongoing coach with her is Adam Robbins. And it's like, these people are skilled in ways that I'm not. And so when I invest in my own coaching with these people, number one, I experience, and I'm really saying this for the listeners, right? Advice that when you and I, Shanna, invest in ourselves by being
Mhm.
coached, number one, we appreciate what it's like for our clients.
Right.
And because we invest financially, right, then it takes away some of the, guilt, the false guilt, about serving others with a skill set, and training and anointing that God has given us.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I highly recommend. Do you want to say what the name of your life coach is?
Yes. So my life coach, right? Well, I just finished up with Kathy Stowell, and she's amazing. She's a business coach, and I'm getting ready to enter a new program with Amy Lotta, and she is amazing. She's all about just business and learning how to navigate your mind through growing your business.
And I want to refer back to something that you just mentioned a few moments ago, is you talked about your moms go through 12 weeks. Like, you're talking about, you finished this coaching and now you're going to
Mhm.
go to another coaching. So when your moms coach with you for 12 weeks,
Mhm.
I'm imagining that many of them might at some point want to do another 12 weeks. How do you work that out?
Well, a lot of times we go through this process, and my process is really simple. And towards the end, the very last 4 weeks or so, we really work on evaluation. We really work on what it would take to continue this when you don't have a coach, because sometimes, when you end having a supportive relationship and that just cuts off, there's this grief, almost a feeling of grief, because you're grieving this, having something support you so tightly. So we work the last 4 weeks on unwinding that a little bit, and I teach them a process to self-coach so that they have something. I give them some tools to walk away with so they still feel like they have the support that they need. And then if they want to do another 12 weeks or they want to do some kind of maintenance plan, we're able to kind of work that and say, what do you need? Why do you need it? Why do you feel like you need it? And sometimes we work through these emotions and they realize that they're just scared to do it on their own. And so that's our brain just trying to keep us safe. You've always done it without a coach, like or you've never done it without a coach. You've only been successful when you've had a coach. So your brain's trying to, their brain is trying to tell them you're not going to make it if you don't have a coach. And so we need to I gently tell them, like, we must tell our brains, thank you, brain, for trying to keep me safe. But I'm not going to believe this because, right, there are truths and there are lies.
Yeah.
A lot of times our brains are lying to us, but it has our best intention in mind, but we must tame it. We must not allow that to lead us, because sometimes that can get us into trouble.
For sure. Such great.
Mhm.
That's worth the price of just listening to this right now, is just there. Well, you and I know that coaching is an investment in lots of ways, financial being one of them. What are some other ways that that coaching is an investment for the individual or for the group or for the couples?
So usually the investment there is this emotional investment that I believe coaching has that's not really talked about a lot. There is a financial piece that I think is talked about a lot. And I think that comes up a lot. But when I am on a call with women in the very beginning, I let them know this is going to be an emotional investment for you. This is going to be something that we're going to walk through different emotions. And I want them to always be open to that. And so there's this investment of not only that, but also, time, right? You're going to have to invest your time. If you're going to come to somebody and you want to see some changes, you've got to make some changes to see different results. And so there is going to be some work on their end. And so those investments are top of my list, right under investment, because investments, I think, is always just this financial thing is always in the top of people's minds, but they don't really realize the emotional investment that they're going to have in this. And like I said, we uncover a lot of emotions going through these 12 weeks and learning how to feel feelings that we thought were bad. I think we oftentimes label some of these emotions like crying, and we label them and attach them to shame. And so working through these things and saying, like, you're going to have to feel these feelings so we can figure out how to rewire and how to change them, so that when you cry, you feel relief, you feel peace, you don't feel shame, you don't feel guilt, right? We're going to change all of that. We're going to change how you feel with your feelings. So I think that the emotional investment is right there, and letting them know that. And I think that when I know that when I talk to them about it, I see in their face just this, like, you get me, like, oh my gosh, or they didn't realize that there was this, even just without coaching, there's already an emotional cost. So investing in that emotionally to get through it, it's like, it's just it's a relief. It's peace. That's really the way I can explain it.
And especially, again, when it's personalized, again, not to take anything away from group coaching and coursework, because that's all inner work. As far as I'm concerned, it's all matters. But I have to say, I agree 100% with you. And I know that really people are investing into themselves spiritually, because as Christian coaches, right, always going to bring people back to the biblical truth, right?
Absolutely.
I always tell, my clients, it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't even matter what you think. What matters is what God says, right? So we're going to take our lives through the lens of what God says. So we know it's spiritually, emotionally, as you said, relationally, because when we get better, our relationships get better. Period. Right.
Absolutely.
And then educationally, there's no way that, people can spend time with you and they don't walk away wiser, more skilled in how to manage whatever it is that, has been troubling them, discouraging them. And that's not even all, right? There's more, I'm sure, that we could add to that, but those are pretty great investments right there, that I think we invest in ourselves when we put ourselves in the hands of other Christian coaches. And then when people put themselves in our hands, this is what they're also recognizing, that, if I work with Shanna, I'm going to be investing, yes, emotionally, but also spiritually, and yes, relationally. And yes, I'm getting an education. I'm getting what she's learned poured into me. I don't have to go to class. I don't have to spend those thousands of dollars to get her, courses and her certifications. I can just spend time with her and she can pour it into me. And for busy moms, that has to feel like a hallelujah.
Yes, it does. I think that actually plays when they hear some of the things that I say.
Right. So I would love to know, like, how people can connect with you. Like, they hear this today, maybe they didn't even ever think that they needed, a coach, being a mom, like, but they're hearing today, like, oh, it's okay that I don't know it all. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to fake it till I make it. I don't have to live feeling overwhelmed and like a failure. So if a woman or a man, is hearing this for his wife and he says, like, how can I get more information? Where would you send them?
Usually I hang out a lot on social media. And so that's in it. I have links that the best way to get connected is to get on a discovery call with me. I can, answer questions in Messenger or the, DMs of different social medias. I'm on Instagram with my first and last name, Shanna Alonge. I'm on Facebook the same way. And you can either send me a message. There's always a link available to schedule a call. And I give a 45-minute free call away to discover what's going on. If maybe, sometimes I can help you, sometimes I can't, and I have to refer it out. Absolutely. And that's okay. I just want to make sure that whomever is coming to me is going to get the support that they need. And usually women come to me because they already been following me, or they've already been seeing the things that I'm saying can help them. And so we just basically go over, here's, what I can help you with, here's what we can do to get there. And it's such a relief. So I would say, connecting with me, the easiest way is to get on Instagram. I'm Shanna Alonge, and you can just send me a direct message. I'm really personal, and I'm a very intimate, very social person. I think that when you say growing your business, I don't want to let that go. I always want to be the one that's answering my messages, that's talking to people. Also, on Instagram, there's a button to email me. You can always email me and I respond very fast. So any of those, just know that if you do try to reach out in any way, I am very quick to respond. So there's really no wrong way to try to get in touch with me.
Okay. So talk a little bit about a discovery call for somebody that's never heard of that. What does that mean? What is the cost, if any?
Okay, so for a discovery call, it's free. A discovery call is set up so that a woman who may want to do coaching, but has no idea what coaching is. We talk a little bit about what life coaching is. We talk about where she's at. We talk about what's going on in your life. We talk about here's ways to get there. We oftentimes, what happens on these calls is there are small breakthroughs, because obviously there's a different perspective coming at it. And also, in these calls, it's a very safe place. And so these women come to the call and they begin pouring out their hearts, and then they begin answering some of they kind of get themselves unstuck, because they're able to just have a safe place to let all of their, thoughts and feelings and emotions out. And so that happens a lot as well. But this call is free. It's 45 minutes, and we sit and we talk about what life coaching is, if it can help you. We talk about the cost. We talk about, I just go over in depth my program, but mostly about it's called a discovery call. So we can discover what's going on with you, if I can help you get to a place of where you want to be.
So good information. And what I appreciate that you said is, I think every really good coach would say, is we're not a great fit for everybody, right? We're great for what we do, and we don't try to be therapists, right? There's many people that reach out to me by referral, let's say, and just because I'm working with their aunt, their sister, their brother, whatever, I doesn't mean I can work with them, because like you said, I'm not geared to work with everybody, and not everybody's needs are needs that I can speak into. And I appreciate that you are the same way. That shows an excellent heart of a coach who says, but I have great resources. We never send anybody away empty-handed, right? We give them all kinds of resources. And I would say to the person listening today that maybe, you're listening to this and you're thinking that you do need a resource outside of coaching. Both Shanna and I would be happy to connect you with resources. There are people that need truly clinical help. They need somebody, especially if they're self-harming or whatever. That's not coaching. That's not coaching, right? But that's therapeutic work. But coaching is being able to take you from where you are to where you want to be, and help you to even discover what that is. So don't hesitate to reach out to Shanna and I if you need some resources that you don't think coaching would fill, in. But like she said, the discovery call is free, right? What a 45 minutes, what a generous use of your time, to help a mom who's feeling overwhelmed. So thank you for providing that. Well, for those that aren't connected with me, I can be found on Life Coaching with Laura at Facebook, and I'm on IG at Laura Dahne, DAHNE.com. And if you're interested in any books on inner healing and grieving, you can go to my website at www.lauradahne.com. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for just coming on here, giving of your time, giving of your wisdom. And I want to thank the listener for listening and sharing this. I'm going to ask every person to please forward this to your friends, because maybe this message isn't for you, but it could very well be for a mom who you don't even know is struggling. And so as we just share the hope and the healing and the love, right, people's lives get touched. And especially with Shanna, being able to provide a discovery call that's at no cost. I mean, what a gift to be able to pass on. So I want to leave it with you. I'm going to ask you in just a moment a closing question, Shanna, but I do want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for your desire to serve, number one, the King of all.
That's right.
And through that love that you have for him, that then you provide and serve his people. And so I resonate with you on that 100%. And I just say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I'd like to ask you in closing, what key truth or truths do you want to leave with our listeners?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on here. This has been so fun. Thanks for creating this space for me to come on and speak my heart. And I would like to leave with anyone listening that if you do feel like you're stuck and you do feel like you're in a place of overwhelm and you feel like you just can't move forward, and maybe you've been praying for a while and you feel like I don't know what to do next. I'm just waiting for God to tell me what to do next. I would like to say to you that there's power and possibility. So if you feel like you are stuck and you're saying things like, I'm never going to get out of this, I can't do this. First of all, I want to tell you to eliminate some of these words from your vocabulary. And I want you to replace them. Instead of I'm never going to, things are never going to change. I want you to change, just change the one word and change it to possible. So when you have this thought, I want you to combat it with something like, it's possible things are going to change. It's possible God is going to bring me the answers that I need. It's possible the prayer I'm doing right now is going to pay off. And if you can just replace that one word, I promise you, it will change the trajectory of your day, of your week. And so there's power and possibility.
Wow, so beautifully said. Nothing I can add to that except to say, wow, thank you. I agree.
Okay, great.
To our listeners, peace and love.